Hey everybody, and welcome back to Breaking It Down. This is going to be Tidbit number 6. We're back in studio, and I know we were supposed to talk about something today.
Yeah, we were supposed to be talking about the benefits of children's books and reading them as adults, beginning with Ferdinand the Bull, which was written about, I guess, in the 1930s and was authored by Monroe Leaf and illustrated by Robert Lawson. And it has great historical context, and it has great proactive themes, or at least for the time, that are still relevant today. But we are not going to be doing that today. And I think the first reason is because I would bet the farm that my co-host has not read the book yet.
You're probably right about that.
Yes, so that means that I'll be reading it to you this week.
Yeah, I need you to tuck me in
Yeah.
a cup of milk and some reading. Some good old-fashioned reading.
Yes. How is it that you couldn't read
A children's book? I
a
couldn't even read a
book?
children's book.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But the real reason we're not going to be addressing that tonight is that I wanted to share a story with you about something that I felt was exceedingly disturbing that happened at work in the past couple of weeks. So, as you all know, I do a lot of things, I wear a lot of hats, but I also work part-time in a skilled nursing facility. I always like to try to work within a system to try to make it better. And there's a lot of room for improvement there.
Yeah,
there's a whole
absolutely.
story for a series.
Yeah, that's a whole
other kettle.
I feel like most people probably don't even know.
Oh no, unless people have had the experience or had a family member placed in one of these homes, they really can't understand what goes on.
Yeah.
In a lot of them. There are some very good places, but some that are not as well run.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. But at any rate, I guess about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks, the facility hired a new physician. And from day one, it seemed like things were a little bit off. I went up immediately to say, hello, how are you? If there's anything I can do to help you. And zippo, no response.
Oh.
Not even...
Isn't that always weird?
Always weird, and I felt so uncomfortable as though I had done something wrong, and I'm like, wait a minute. All right. So I tried for days 2 and 3, nothing, and I'm like, okay, you're on your own kind of thing. That's all right. But what was interesting was that several of the nurses had also noticed the same thing, that this person was not being very communicative. And I said, all right, well, maybe it's an adjustment thing, nervous about a new job, whatever. Let's give it a little bit of time. Well, like on day 4 or so, one of the nurses came to me hysterically crying. She said she had never been berated like that, and and she didn't even know what precipitated the problem, and she was totally confused. And she said, "What do I do?" I said, "Well, you can try to speak to this person." She said, "Well, I did, but I didn't get a response." And so I said, "Okay, then just document it. If anybody else, saw the event, make sure that somebody on staff witnesses it and timestamp it, and we'll see what happens." So red flag number 1,
Yeah.
right? And then later that day, 2 men of color who worked at the institution, one of whom was a CNA and the other who worked in the custodial office, came to me and said, "Hey, this guy, was really condescending to us, and we're not having this. We don't like this." And so, people were beginning to get a little bit agitated, and people were becoming a little bit uncomfortable about the whole thing. And I said, okay, do the same thing that we told the nurses to do. Just, document what's going on. If there's a witness to it, timestamp it. And let's give it at least a little bit more time.
Yeah.
But the next day, it elevated to a whole different level.
God.
Yeah. So apparently he had gone in to see a patient, and the patient was having chest pain. And he did what was appropriate medically, ordered the right tests and an EKG and everything, but never related to the 2 nurses of color on the floor. And that is an absolute, just horrendous. Everything that was happening was horrendous.
You'd think there'd have to be communication between doctor and nurse, right?
Well, there has to be communication among everybody in any kind of medical facility, because, the more eyes that are on a patient, the more information that you obtain and the better care that you can give. It's almost like a theater production in a funny sort of way.
Right, you all kind of need each other.
Yeah, the patient is really kind of what would be the equivalent of the actor. And then everybody else performs a function. So the nurses give medications and the CNAs make sure that they're dressed and cared for. Physical therapists you need and social workers, everybody plays a role. And the doctors really spend pretty much the least amount of time. You're not always there, especially in a skilled nursing facility.
Right.
Right? And in a theater production, if the makeup is off or the music is off, right? Or
it all kind of needs each other.
It just doesn't flow.
Or it doesn't flow. Yeah.
Exactly. So now this was a whole different scenario. So that was also documented and bumped to a nursing supervisor, as to what to do. And at this point, everybody in the facility is now talking about what's going on.
And now this guy's only been on the job for
about a week.
About a week. Wow.
About a week.
Tough to make a bad impression in a week, but
yeah, right, exactly. So, in typical fashion in this day and age, everybody went to Google. And what they found was a little bit disturbing. There was a person with a name that was not exactly the same, but very similar to this person's name, okay, who had been dismissed from a residency program with admission that they had been active with white supremacists and had been posting on white supremacist sites.
That's uncomfortable.
That's uncomfortable, but there was no image initially. So I said, okay, maybe the same guy. You need to get data. You can't just assume.
Right. Yeah. Due diligence. But,
exactly.
But that's kind of creepy.
Very creepy.
Yeah.
And by the end of the day, there was a photo that managed to verify who this person was. So now, if all this data, people were really agitated and said, okay, what are we going to do? Now, I should tell you, I am not the medical director there, but I spend a lot of time there. So, people come to me and ask me for
and you're
advice.
Approachable. So.
And we all get along. We all need each other. So it was great. And, but at any rate, so we decided as a group that we needed to have the data presented in a logical, calm manner to the administrator as a first-tier approach. And in fact, the nurses went and did that, and the supervisor and the administrator did the appropriate thing and dismissed this person from the premises. So, I think there are several morals to this story. The first one being that, you can't just complain about something or become agitated about something. It never accomplishes a goal. That you need to have a methodical, well thought out, coordinated effort of action to make something happen, so that you don't minimize the ability to have a discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just shocked that they were able to handle it so calmly, but that's why it's effective. Take the emotion out of it and kind of, this is why we think it doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah. This is why we think it doesn't work. And the other thing was that it was nice to see a community come together, to under a common goal and achieve that goal.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic to see. Do you think that there's a rise in this in our society?
I do think there's a rise in the society. I think, we're seeing that prevalence of anger and divisiveness throughout our society now. And I think we've discussed this before. In part, it's due to the fact that we all live in our own micro-environments, our own Skinner's boxes, where we get endorphin release because we watch the news that we want to watch. Right. We validate ourselves by tweets and our Instagram posts. We visit websites that suit our own interactions that we already agree with. So when we come face to face with something that's different, and then we're not really capable of handling it, and we really don't know how to deal with it. And that becomes a problem. And I think what we need to realize that, every action we take, every spoken word that we have, everything that we do affects people that we deal with, positively or negatively, on a daily basis. And we have some of us may have 10, some of us may have 100, some of us may have thousands of interactions with people, and that becomes an exponential rippling effect. I like to talk about, and I think I've told you about this before, about doubling of a penny, right?
Yes,
so I know.
Sounds so easy.
It sounds so easy, but if you double a penny every day for 30 days, you end up with a little bit over $5 million.
Yeah,
$5
$5 million.
And if
All
you-
you got to do is double pennies. I
all
don't
you
know
gotta
why I
do-
can't figure this out.
There you go. Exactly. But if you think about that in terms of just on a daily basis, if you're affecting one person positively, then that person is likely to affect other people positively during that day. And the obverse is also true. But what's also important is that sometimes you're not affecting somebody just for that one day. They may be carrying that, whatever you've said or done to that person for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And that may affect how they deal with things in the future. And that is something that we all need to realize, that in fact we're all micro-influencers on one level or another.
That is a powerful thing to realize, and hopefully helps you set a standard for how you behave and react with others, because you don't want to create someone who's going to, not so much create someone, but create a situation where somebody's going to negatively affect everyone they come in contact with for the rest of their day, their life.
Right.
And you do see that sometimes with some people where they're just always causing a problem or involved in some sort of a problem.
Right. And from a societal point of view, I think it's a huge thing. If we don't stop the anger and divisiveness, if we don't overcome fear with knowledge, then I think our society is headed for a downward spiral that would take us years, if at all possible, to pull out of. And history repeats itself. We've talked about this before. I know, if we talk about, for example, the Polynesians in Easter Island that between 30 and 120 AD, or more popularly, I guess, the Roman Empire.
Yes.
More people know that more, right?
And very similar to our society
Very
in a lot
similar.
of ways.
Exactly. Political corruption and political divisiveness. I think that, value systems started becoming fragmented. You had the rise of Constantinople at the time and the decline of the military. All sounds familiar, right?
Yeah.
So, it's something that we need to be aware of and learn from our historical perspective.
Yeah, learn from our past and try not to repeat it, right? And it all kind of starts with you.
Exactly.
In a way.
Exactly. It all kind of starts with what we do, how we act, and how we choose to behave.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a fun tidbit. I think we got some history in, some.
Hopefully, we will get back to talking about the effect of children's books on adults next week, and the reason that adults should read them. If you're listening,
give the people their homework.
Yeah, please go out and read. It'll take you maybe 5 to 10 minutes. Read Ferdinand the Bull, and we'll talk about it next week.
Ferdinand the Bull. It's a classic.
It's a classic.
It's a classic, and I will do my best to read it by next week's episode. I promise.
There we go. Until next time, this is Dr. Sherry reminding you to live each day with passion, compassion, and introspection.
Love it. We're out.